Now, on the board's last meeting of 2019 was a meaty one. We're going to start today with a look at 3 items that give us some insight into what Amazon's planned headquarters means here in Arlington. So let's dive right in. It was quite the action-packed meeting this month. So let's start with the Met Park redevelopment,
Sure.
which is kind of the crux of the whole thing. So let's dive right in and tell us what happened.
Well, in the big picture sense, this is a really transformative project for Arlington. We're going to have, with Amazon's new headquarters, 2 22-story office towers that are going to be the most energy efficient buildings that Arlington has ever produced. They're going to go at the highest level of the certification for sustainability, LEED Platinum. They're going to be doing a combination of on-site energy, and they have a goal of making sure that they're using 100% renewable energy at the site by 2030, which is even more ambitious than our community energy plan. There is about $14 million that's going to go into expanding and outfitting public open space that's also going to be perpetually maintained by Amazon. There's going to be an on-site child care center. There's going to be a community center that's going to be available for both county government as well as county nonprofit and civic group use. There's also going to be a $20 million contribution for affordable housing. That's $12.5 million above the base expected contribution. So there's a lot of great things going on here, not to mention improvements to the street network with protected bike lanes and linear parks. Very much the built environment's going to be a good thing. And then, what I'm excited about, Met Park was planned more recently to be entirely residential. Now, by putting these office uses here, I actually think it's a better land use mix. And it's going to, allow this to be a much more dynamic area in Pentagon City. And it was something that you don't get often in Arlington, where people didn't really have many issues. No concerns about the architecture. And generally, when it comes to the land use part of it, it was a very smooth and dare I say, easy public hearing.
Now, what does this mean then, going on for the whole community vision for Pentagon City and, of course, Crystal City, since Amazon will be in both?
Well, one of the things I think is really exciting about this project is that it represents the realization of a lot of community plans. Of course, being in Pentagon City, it's outside of the Crystal City Sector Plan boundaries. But when you look at the realization of the Metropolitan Park, as Christian talked about, the actual physical park, or the achievement of things like the extensive contribution to our network of protected bike lanes, or even the energy efficiency standards and in fact, net zero goal of this building, that represents the fruition of a lot of different plans in Arlington County. The public spaces master plan, for example, the bike element of our transportation master plan. Certainly this amazing down payment by our public and private sector on the goals of the community energy plan. And so I think what you're really seeing is visions and values that this community has had, that we have codified in elements of our comp plan or planning processes, now being realized with this major private investment.
Let's talk a little bit about the affordable housing contribution. How significant is that $20 million contribution?
It's the biggest contribution we've ever had for affordable housing in Arlington. And, we have, our system of community benefits that we negotiate with developers. There's a base expectation that they are expected to meet, and that would have, in this case, amounted to about $7.5 million. So you do the math, and we're getting more than double what would be expected, which is significant. It is, it's never happened. So, the idea that we have so much coming in the form of resources to provide for affordable housing is incredibly useful. And, better yet, the way it's structured, it will come in tranches as the building is developed, or if we identify an opportunity to commit those to a single project in the vicinity, we can get the $20 million in one lump sum right away. So this gives us a degree of flexibility and opportunity that we've never had before.
And it's worth reminding ourselves every opportunity we get. The way our Affordable Housing Investment Fund works is we tend to see every dollar of that local investment leveraged by about 4 to 1 through federal low-income housing tax credits, other sources from the capital market that nonprofit developers can access. So I think it's fair to say every project is idiosyncratic and has different costs associated with it when you talk about the development of committed affordable housing. But $20 million is on the high end of what the county's share of or contribution to an affordable housing project has been in Arlington County.
Absolutely,
so I think we will be able to see bricks and mortar as the result of this, and more importantly, homes that are affordable to our moderate income or low income neighbors, and that is what is really exciting.
Very exciting. Now, are we talking very specifically in the Pentagon City, Crystal City area for that affordable housing, or could that be spread all throughout Arlington?
Well, there's no sort of boundary requirement for it, but to be consistent with the way we've described our efforts at affordable housing all throughout the recruitment of Amazon has been the 22202 zip code, which includes Crystal City and Pentagon City and adjacent neighborhoods, but also 22204, the Columbia Pike corridor. We have looked at all of those as being areas that are likely to be impacted by growth that's occurring in Pentagon City and Crystal City. So I would imagine that would be the sort of geographic boundary that we would target this investment for, because it only makes sense and it's consistent with what we have, what we have planned for in terms of mitigating displacement issues.
Okay. And now this is described, this is phase 1 of the new headquarters. What can the public expect to see here in the near future?
So we know roughly where it will be, right?
Yeah.
Geographically in the county, rather nearby to this site. But I don't know that we've seen any preliminary thinking about the architecture, for example. But again, in the same way that the benefits in particular realized out of this project represented the fruition of our longstanding community plans and objectives, I think you can expect to see very much the same in future phases. We've planned our work and we're working our plan here in Arlington County in terms of what we're hoping to realize in the 22202 area. And so one thing that I think people can hang their hat on is that the future planning process for future sites are going to emphasize those longstanding plans and community goals as well.
And if Amazon pursues their plans, this accounts for about half of what they are planning if they adhere to the 25,000 employee target trajectory that has been the subject of our conversation. So about 2.1 million square feet here, which leaves roughly about that much for the other site that they've identified. So we can roughly presume that we're about halfway there in terms of what Amazon is planning in Arlington.